You take these films very seriously, especially a film like this that's so active. You know, there's a lot of stunts in this, moving around.
Yeah.
And for your health, you tried something new on this film. In order to not get sick, explain your relationship with bee venom.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a real thing.
I'm a maniac. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking, but I had this nutrition. I had a lot of inflammation. I was hanging a lot on wires in this 65-pound spacesuit, and that's fine for a few minutes, you know, a couple hours maybe, but after 5 weeks, it's kind of, you know, you're hurting. So my nutritionist said, I've got this great guy. Oh my God, bee venom is his thing, and he's incredible. So I get on the phone with him, and he's like, listen, it has all these anti-inflammatory compounds, and I said, dude, it sounds amazing. He made it sound so logical, and I'm thinking if I can stay organic and do things in a healthier way rather than having to take anything else, or synthetic. So I go, okay, great. When can you get here? He says, well, when do you want me here? And I say, tonight. He goes, it'll cost you. I go, great, fly in. So he flies in. The next minute, I'm topless in my place, and he's
Everyone else would think this is so shady,
it's
and
so
I love.
shady. And we're just getting started.
Yeah, okay.
So he goes, okay, check this out. This is probably about 2.3 bee stings, and he gives me a shot in the arm because we're just got to check that you're not allergic. So I go, it's getting sore, but I'm okay. So he goes, okay. So he gives me another 10.
Oh wow, 23 bee stings.
Then basically 23 bee stings, and then I have the worst. I've never had an allergic. I smile. So I know actually I get ants in my pants, like crawling, and in my head, and suddenly my arm starts swelling up, and I get all blotchy, and then my heart's beating like I'm sure it's going to explode. And I'm going,
This is like the origin of a superhero named Bee-Man.
And I said to him, dude, get the EpiPen. He goes, I can't, you'll have a heart attack. I said, call an ambulance. And he doesn't call an ambulance.
Is this the point where he said, I'm not a doctor?
I am not a doctor, yeah. I don't even know what is. So he then, I get over it, and I go, okay, I'm going to be okay. He calls the guy who sells it to him, the guy who created this thing, and he puts him on speaker just so that guy can tell him what an idiot he's been, and I can hear it. So the guy says, how much did you give him? And he says, I gave him like 0.8 liters or milliliters. And he goes, are you crazy? That is not protocol. You could have killed him. And he's like this. So anyway, he goes home, and this is where the maniac part comes in. I decide a few days later, maybe it wasn't an allergic reaction. Maybe I just took too much. So I get on the phone, he's like, okay, so he talks me through. And my girlfriend was coming in to visit me at that point. We just started dating, and I didn't want her to know how crazy I was. And so I take a shot, thinking it's going to be okay, and I have an even worse reaction. And I'm like, oh my God, and then I think my throat is closing over. And then I say to the driver, okay, you got to take me to the hospital. And I say to my assistant, go get Morgan, and please don't tell her what happened. Tell her I'm just late at work. And it's like, anyway, I end up at the hospital, and they say, what, so it's a bee sting? And I went, yeah. They go, what happened? I said, well, I injected myself. And they said, oh my God, that's terrible. So, and that was tonight. And I says, well, it was 4 days ago as well. And, anyway, so that is,
That's great. It turns out telling that to real doctors all of a sudden was like, that is not a good idea at any point.
No. Yeah. So it was like, so you think you're a big man, eh?
Well, I'm glad you're okay. Thank you so much for being here.